Hello and welcome to the first Walk and Talk, a series of videos that will be running during the Brit 2021 challenge. Basically, the idea behind this is to get out and get moving and get people active. So hopefully this might serve as a tool, something you might want to listen to, or maybe inspire you to get out and discuss. So the whole idea is we have a conversation with a student, a staff, and alumni, and we interact. We see what discussions sort of come from that. And effectively, we inspire others to get out and move just like we are right now. So without further ado, would you like to introduce yourself, Meg?
Hello, I'm Meg Varley. I'm a postgraduate at Coventry University. I'm studying diplomacy, law and global change, and play for the women's rugby team at the university, and also play for Worcester Warriors women in the Allianz Premier 15s.
That sounds very much like a busy person and a busy schedule. So firstly, a massive thank you for your time today and braving us outside in the cold. Before we move on, whereabouts are you walking today?
I'm in Coventry. I'll show you if I can turn my camera. No, there we go.
There we go.
That's what
out in the snow, out in the snow and in the cold. So yeah, we're really grateful for you joining us today. And thanks for being the first person to start. We always need a brave person to start these things off. And no more so now than when we're out freezing in the cold. So without further ado, you mentioned obviously a undergrad, now postgrad. How are you finding that?
Yeah, it's all right. It's there's a lot to cover, but no, I am enjoying it. I'm just relieved I've got through undergrad, to be honest. So I think postgrad's just a bonus.
What was the inspiration behind taking that extra step or that extra leap, I suppose, to the next step?
Because there was all right. So partly there was nothing else to do.
That is a factor. No, we're joking apart. It is a factor. That is a challenge, particularly more so now than ever, isn't it? That is a real challenge for young students. What do they do after university?
Yeah, so that was kind of partly a reason behind it, but also just because I came across it and it looked really interesting, so I was like, oh, why not? And I've got nothing to lose at the minute. There's nothing else to do. So
no, I've been having similar discussions with people as well around kind of life after university has always been challenging for a long time since when I finished university, but now more so than ever. You chuck COVID in the mix. I just don't know where people are going to be in a couple of years' time. So it's a real challenge. So it's good that you took that step. It's a challenging step, isn't it? But at least you've got some kind of light at the end of the tunnel, I suppose. You've got something to focus on for the next year or so.
Yeah.
And obviously you mentioned you got a pretty busy schedule, haven't you, with being involved in club rugby, but in the Premiership, but also student rugby, and balancing that sort of lifestyle. How have you found that over the past 3 or 4 years?
I've managed. It's not been too bad. There are times when like assignments come up and it does get a bit much, but I think it's just a case of trying to manage the time, which I'm actually not very good at. So that was the hardest bit, is actually trying to organise everything. But once you get into it, it's not bad. Like, I'll just do a couple of all-nighters on like coursework or something and hope for the best. But
glad to see nothing has changed with students and time management. But I mean, it's a fascinating one for me anyway. And I've worked with a few young student athletes on performance programs in the past, and hearing about that lifestyle that you're sort of trying to balance is quite interesting, really. What the demands put on you from sort of the club, rugby, university setup, is it a full schedule these days, or is it something that you feel you can balance quite easily?
Well, with the university, obviously, it's a little bit difficult at the minute because can't really see each other and train and stuff like that. So it's kind of like hit and miss with that at the minute. But with club rugby, we're still obviously allowed to go in, play, train. So yeah, it is still quite demanding. I just think that now, because there's not so much running around with university and stuff, it actually helps balance it out a little bit more. So in a way, it's a bit of a blessing in disguise, in a way. But it would still be nice for things to get back to normal. But
of course, and a difficult question to answer, but if there was sort of a few things or ideas that you've come across the way where as a university or as a sport department we could help our sort of scholars or our student athletes who are in these performance pathways, any ideas, initial thoughts, or things we could offer you guys? Because as I said, I think it's quite a complex scenario you're in at such a young age. We're effectively saying be a performance athlete, be a superstar at whatever age, and also get a full-time degree. That's just a complex situation to be in, personally. Any thoughts, any ideas for us?
Well, actually, I think like the uni with the scholarship program's been pretty good with keeping on top of everything. They've had online workshops, kept in touch like strength and conditioning wise. So I don't actually think there's anything that they haven't done that they need to do.
That's good.
I think it's been all right. I think maybe for the club perspective, maybe I think it's just that engagement. But again, it's difficult if people aren't in kind of the same areas. Everyone's dotted around. Half the freshers haven't even met anyone yet. So
yeah,
it's quite a difficult scenario actually. So off the top of my head, no, I don't know.
Oh well, we'll have a think, and it's always nice to hear sort of the perspective, isn't it, and the feedback of the students who are involved in it, and you're almost in that part of it now where you've been involved in it for 3 years, and you're probably moving more to the outside perspective when you move on to go and do other stuff. So learning from that is always important. And obviously, you mentioned the Premiership. How long have you been involved in that?
I think it's for about the past 4 years now. I started when I was 18, kind of, just kind of ended up in it. It's really weird. I don't quite know how it happened, but I just moved up from junior rugby where I was at Worcester to seniors, and it just went from there. But yeah, it's been the past 4 years now, and I love it.
Do you? That's good.
Yeah.
And what's the schedule like with those guys at the moment in this strange world we're in?
Well, at the minute, obviously, obviously everyone's got kind of full-time jobs or studies, so it's not like I'm not at Worcester every day. It's just like Tuesday, Thursday, kind of gym and training, and then Saturday is usually like a game day, but obviously it depends like when the games are scheduled in, and obviously there's been like changes in the league with the way kind of COVID's affected it. So I'm usually there like 2 to 3 times a week. It's not too bad, but obviously there's like other kind of gym and training stuff I have to do away from the club as well, and like monitoring and meetings and things like that. So, yeah.
No, I can imagine. That's as I said, I think from anyone who's probably not got as much as an understanding of what it entails for you guys, as well, guys, girls, everyone involved in performance sport, it is a lot to take on board, and we mustn't forget that when we're talking to you as students as well, because you've got other things that you're balancing throughout the week. So it's really interesting to hear your kind of perspective on things. Obviously, in the Premiership or Women's Premiership at the moment, or rugby as a whole, there's been some interesting discussions, hasn't there, around the women's games being cancelled, and this kind of, is it fair to say, kind of we care movement or we care discussion. What's your thoughts on that? What's your takes on that? It's a tricky one to discuss, obviously, as a male-female conversation, but I think it's a good one to discuss.
Actually, I don't think it's difficult, like a male-female discussion. I actually think it's better.
Good answer. Good answer.
I don't see the point in. I got a bit niggled. Sorry.
That's okay.
I got a bit niggled when people started banging on about. I say bang on about. I don't mean it literally, but when they started saying misogyny and things like, I think actually it's a bit far-fetched when they say that, because actually, yes, we get like there's comments and attitudes towards the women's game that maybe we don't like, but at the end of the day, these people have to see all this stuff on social media, and in their eye line they have to see it, and I think actually that's a good thing. The fact that they're commenting means they've seen it. Like 10 years ago, this wouldn't no one would have commented on it because they don't see it. So
no, I think that's a...
Yeah, sorry, carry on.
Go on, carry on.
I just think that actually we can turn it on its head a little bit and make it a bit more positive. The fact that we are in the public eye, yes, what they're saying probably isn't what we want to hear, but with the more publicity we get, the more negative comments we're going to get. It's the same with the men. Like, male players get abuse online so much,
but
they're just told to ignore it. And I think if we just like get our heads down, get the support from, say, the men's clubs, other women's clubs, coaches, everything. If we get that support, we'll be fine. I don't think we need to kind of label it as a man versus woman debate. I think that's probably the wrong way to go about it.
No, I completely agree, and I'm glad you corrected me on that. And I suppose I probably need to caveat it a bit more. I suppose it has become a man versus woman debate. It shouldn't have. That's probably the better way of describing it, isn't it? It's become something that it, for some reason, was a lot of men with an opinion that probably wasn't necessary or needed to be heard. But I love your sort of growth mindset of that, which is any press is good press, because it's like you said, it's conversation, and it's caused a really positive reaction amongst both male and female rugby players who have spread a really positive message. So effectively, for those who aren't aware of the conversation we're sort of discussing, it's caused a bit of an upset, but I think Meg summarised it really well there. It's a conversation that probably wouldn't have happened a while ago, now is happening, and therefore hopefully will grow the game, both sides, male and female, in a positive way moving forward. So, no, I completely agree. I think it's a good conversation to have. Have you had that conversation with many people at the club at Worcester?
Not really. I think we've been so focused on training. Obviously, we support the I care kind of the thought behind it and the movement and everything. And we do think it's really important. I think at training, probably not the place to discuss it. We're so focused on what we're doing there. And obviously everything's just a bit messy at the minute with Corona. So we've been a bit more focused on that. But no, we are all in support of it. And I think that, we just want to help develop that, women's rugby as a thing through the club. And obviously we have the support of the men. And we have the junior sides as well helping that. So,
no, that's good to hear. So moving on to kind of university rugby and university sport, how have you found that over the past 3 years? I'm sure you've seen quite a substantial change and growth within the club, or is that a fair assumption?
Yeah, I mean, we've gone from basically zero to hero, and I think that in the last 3 years, we just excelled, and that's from the effort from the coaching team, from the girls as well, and the committee and everyone. I just think that they put in a lot of hard work over the last 3 years, and it is a shame that it's the league's had to stop. I think it's really gutting for us because of the position we're in. So, but it is what it is, and we move, because that's
we move
to say at the minute.
That is definitely a popular one. I think I'm too old for that one, but no, I know what you mean. That you've got to continue, haven't you? And that's what everyone else will be doing in sort of face adversity. They keep going and keep moving forward. Is it one of the big words that we often discuss in rugby, but I also think in any organisation is culture. What's your take on that? Is that something that is developed naturally as a club, or is that something that the coaches, staff, students, KUSU wider group have kind of supported you with, or is it just a case that you're at right time, right place as a group? What's your thoughts?
Well, I can't really comment on what it was, because obviously before I came to uni, it was different coaching as well, different setup. But since I turned up, it's just been great. The girls just get themselves involved. Obviously increasing support from KUSU as well, and coaching teams has stayed, and it's just thrived. And I think Jordan, who's our coach, has done quite a lot of work with the girls on kind of culture and getting them all immersed, bringing different coaches in, and also kind of just the social aspect was great. I think the girls really threw themselves into it, and actually we've had a good turnover of freshers in the last 3 years. And I think that's really helped with the culture, just kind of getting everyone involved. Everyone's new. A lot of people new to the sport as well. So, yeah, it is quite nice. Yeah, it's a good culture.
No, that's brilliant to hear, because I was thinking about this last night before our discussion today. Rugby and in particular, well, university sport in particular, rugby is something that often one negative bit of press can tarnish such a sort of long time frame or a long time domain, whereas university sport and rugby in particular has so many positives that are happening week in, week out that kind of get overlooked. And all you have to do is type in rugby university news or rugby university updates, and you'll find some negative press, and you won't find many positive press, positive sort of descriptions. So it's really nice to hear that you feel over the sort of 3 years you've been here, it's moved forward at the right kind of pace. Again, a tricky question to answer. Anything we could do more? Anything we could support you on? before we go into kind of more the lockdown conversation?
I hate being put on the spotlight. I don't know.
That's all right.
I think it's quite generic, but I just think obviously the concept of kind of mental health and people's well-being is quite a big thing at the minute. I think anyone everywhere can kind of do more on that. I know it's quite difficult because everything's remote. I don't like going on kind of Zoom calls and stuff, doing activities just because it's not me, but I know a lot of people do. And then there's different things like check-ins and stuff that we've tried throughout, like with the uni girls, but it is difficult. I just think if anyone can kind of think of anything to kind of help aid that. I know the best way to do it is to put sport back on, but that's not able to be done at the minute. So
no, it's a challenging situation to be in. Sport will naturally help a lot of those things, like you said, your mental health, your well-being, your physical health, all those aspects we know both so well because we've been part of sport, played it, watched it, been involved in it, and I completely agree. But we're now in a bit of a challenging situation, aren't we? Of how do we deal with it? A bit more of a hopefully not too intrusive of a question. How have you found it personally, this lockdown period, from a more general, not rugby, just a sporting individual? How have you found it?
It's been all right. I tend to just kind of like go with it and just like hope the best. It doesn't really like affect me or bother me too much. But I just kind of like, if I've got something to do, I'll make like uni work or whatever, I'll do it, or I'll just take time out to just sleep all day, which is quite nice, especially after training. It's quite nice. But again, I'm quite lucky that I've been able to train and play. So actually, it's probably like I've had it better than quite a few people. So well,
potentially.
It's a weird one.
Well, that's an interesting conversation in itself, isn't it? You've been allowed to continue, and many other sportsmen and women have been allowed to continue, but a vast majority haven't. And it's caused quite a lot of debate, isn't it? Whether or not everything should cease and everything should stop and it's almost a level playing field, or whether or not it's fair to continue. I won't ask you to answer that question because you're kind of in a difficult situation, but it's good to hear that you've managed to cope with it in your own methods by probably putting a bit of time into other things like your masters, by the sound of things. I know personally speaking, the change in lifestyle is strange, isn't it? Going from go to university every day, physically active, go to the gym, maybe some training, maybe something like coaching or playing like yourself, and then back to kind of sitting on the sofa and trying to get yourself motivated every day. It's difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I spend most of it eating now, so probably not a good idea, but we're all good. It's fine. It's bulky season. It's okay.
Bulky. Yeah, we're still in winter. It's not summer yet.
No.
Okay, well, just before we kind of try and wrap things up, any final thoughts? Any things you want to discuss? The floor is kind of yours. What's your thoughts?
I don't know.
That's all right.
Yeah,
okay, I'll chuck some questions at you. What's going to be your lasting memories of Sport Coventry? That word. If I say Sport Coventry or those words, what's going to be your lasting memory?
Probably some. Can I say it on here?
I don't know if it's rude. Probably not.
Yeah, probably not.
Go on, you're gonna have to use a different set of vocabulary for it.
Well, it's gonna have to be something to do with varsity, which I won't say on here. It was a bit embarrassing. It was in the middle of Empire, and it was on the stage.
Okay.
Millie Mack will know.
Okay, all right. We'll leave that on there. I think even I'm starting to know what that one is. But we'll say varsity celebrations. Varsity celebrations.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to go about it.
No, well, that's an important part of your journey at university, isn't it? Like the social side is equally as important as the performance side. So that's good to hear. What about if I said women's rugby, University of Coventry Women's Rugby Club? What's going to be a lasting memory of that?
Absolutely smashing Warwick at varsity. That's what's going to be my lasting memory.
Someone's making a strong case for varsity 2021, yes. 2022, aren't they?
Yes, at Warwick Uni. We're going to come
Brilliant.
Honestly, best day of my life.
Brilliant. Okay, and then final thing, what do you want to do? I'm going to go full circle. thinking about once you finish your postgrad, once you finish your masters, if you just want to reconfirm what that was in, I don't know if we covered that. What do you want to go into? Where do you want to go in the future? Is it still going to see rugby or sport as part of that, or is it going to be step away and do some new challenges? What's your thoughts after university?
Well, I don't want to leave Worcester. That's something I really don't want to do.
As
I'd
a
like
club?
to carry on. Yeah, as a club,
Yeah.
as a team, everything. I still want to be part of that. So any way that I can still do that, like stay there, would be great. But yeah, like in terms of jobs and stuff, there's a lot of options that I can go down, and I definitely want to kind of have some sort of career alongside rugby. So I don't know. Obviously, women's rugby at the minute, it's not professional, so I have the opportunity to do that. So going with the view that it won't be professional, it'll probably be something to do with the police or kind of something along those lines. I'm not 100% sure yet, but applying for jobs at the minute and just seeing what I get back and hopefully go from there.
Brilliant. It's a nice summary, sort of full circle. Best of luck with all of that in the future, and obviously do keep us in the loop, and hopefully you have many successes in whatever you go into. I'm sure you will do as well as you have done at university in whatever industry or area you decide to pick after university. You're not going to bully them into a position, but yeah, you might do. But no, best of luck with everything, and once again, thank you for your time today in this cold English wet rainy morning that we've been walking around a park in.
It's all right, thanks for having me.